Do you think you would kill an animal again? Because like you say, like...
Yeah, very likely. I probably will in 2-3 months.
Okay.
I do quite often. Go to Scotland, go hunting with my friends. Normally clay pigeons, but occasionally I do shoot animals, yes. It's not something I'm against. Yeah, sure.
So, did you know that you can live healthily as a vegan?
Yeah.
And if so, why would you pay to abuse animals?
Religious reasons. I'd probably say it's my primary reason. I'm Jewish.
Religious reasons,
We eat a lot of meat. It's quite a heavy part of our religion. Most of the times I eat meat for celebratory things. All my family are vegan pretty much. So I only really eat it for celebrations.
I can relate to that. I'm not religious, but I grew up in a French francophone family. And when I first transitioned when I was 14, 15, I was literally force-fed meat by my parents. But then obviously a lot of people can relate to that. It's because it's just normalised for them. But I just politely distanced myself and was like, I'm not going to eat meals with you guys. It's kind of hard, but worth it, I guess. So.
As with celebrations, do you think animals get abused in animal agriculture? Like to get their flesh and their secretions?
Definitely.
Do you recognise they get abused? Do you think it's a little bit strange that we consume animals which inherently have so much abuse and ultimately slaughter for a celebration? Do you think that's a little bit disjointed?
No, I think it's quite normal. You're celebrating things, or at least, celebrating is very diverse, but at least what I'm celebrating are things which involve death as well. It's not particularly an esoteric concept within those celebrations, I'd say. But it is very dependent on the celebration. Something like Christmas, where you're celebrating birth, I think killing a chicken for that is very ironic. But something like Purim, which happened yesterday, where I did eat meat, I think it's very normal to celebrate death with killing something. Quite biblical.
Okay. Do you have any?
I have my own personal opinion that may sound horrible, but just in a non-judgmental way. I think that's a very outdated concept. Why celebrate something like the birth of Christ by killing an animal which could be perfectly happy just living and chilling in a field on its own?
I agree with you. I'm not Christian.
Yeah. That's just a general example.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think celebrating birth with death is a bit weird.
Or just any celebration.
I don't know. I feel like, firstly, it is quite an outdated religion. It's 2,000 years old.
Might just keep the mic up.
Oh, sorry, my bad.
I keep it to you, yeah.
It's about 2,000, 3,000 years old, Judaism. So it is very outdated, very traditional. So I think the fact you're killing people might not necessarily be morally currently very good. And I agree with that. I wouldn't go to McDonald's and eat a burger randomly. Mm-hmm. I don't now.
Awesome.
But that doesn't mean I don't eat it probably twice a month. Mm-hmm. For those celebrations, things like that. Birthdays, business meetings, those kind of things.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Again, not judgmental at all.
It's fine.
Do you think if you had to kill the animal yourself or watch it being killed every time you ate it, would you still eat it?
That's a very good question. So my family are pretty much vegan. They eat meat maybe twice a year, and they don't consume animal products normally. Beyond maybe ice cream every now and again. We do have a bit of a weak spot. But so when I was quite young, I think I was about 14, my dad took me pheasant hunting before I had my first kind of meat, because he was like, Greg, you've got to witness, my name's Greg, sorry, you've got to witness killing it in order to, actually be able to eat it. He's very...
To remove the cognitive dissonance.
Pretty much, yeah. Whether it did it, because I was doing it with a gun and things, you can say all those things. So I have killed animals before, a few times, I think 4 or 5 times now, mostly rabbits, fish, those kind of things. And I think it does change your effect on how you're eating meat, especially larger animals like cows, where it's very different. But personally, it's affected me, and I think if anything, it's made me more happy about killing animals or eating animals, which might be odd. But I think if I kill an animal myself, I feel more confident in eating it, especially if I know that it was raised on a pastoral area where it was very well looked after before its death. I wouldn't be comfortable eating something where I don't know where it's come from.
So you don't buy meat from a supermarket?
No.
Like McDonald's, you mentioned twice a month you might eat at McDonald's.
No, twice a month I'd eat meat. I've eaten at McDonald's once in my life.
Well, when you killed the animal, what's the emotions you felt when that happened?
Well, it was a while ago, I'll admit. Last time I did it, probably 3 years ago now. But it depends. I think it was a mix of... I was quite impressed with myself, to be honest, at the time, because it was a bit of a challenging thing to do. I also did feel quite upset, actually, witnessing the blood and things. So I think it was a mix. But then after I ate it, I felt confident that I had chosen to do what I'd done, and I was in charge of my actions, morally right or morally wrong.
Do you think, because that choice to kill the animal took away the life and that choice from that animal, so I think you can say you have the choice if you're not stripping away his rights and the choice away from another being. But don't you also recognise the sentience and the want to live from that animal, which you've taken that choice away from?
I do. I mean, if you're looking at it from a secular point of view, which I'm sure you do, are you religious?
I'd say I'm agnostic.
Yeah, so if you're looking at it from a secular point of view, I agree morally it's quite abhorrent. But if you're looking from a more biblical point of view, that I do, you can assume that the murder of animals is part of nature, it's part of God's intention. Assuming it's done in an ethical way, I deem it to be quite acceptable.
How do you ethically kill an animal?
In a way where it's lived a happy life and it dies according to how God would have wanted it to die, which is effectively just, killed at the end of its natural lifespan.
Unfortunately, that doesn't happen though.
No, it doesn't. I agree. In the majority of cases, probably 99% of animal deaths and the majority of meat people eat isn't done ethically.
Yeah, pigs are killed in gas chambers, aren't they?
Yeah, in the UK they're killed in gas chambers. But even if they've lived a happy life and maybe they've been killed in the quickest, most pain-free way, which I don't think can be considered moral or ethical still, because you're still taking the rights away from the animal. But I think you can justify in a time of necessity, but in our culture we don't need to consume animal products because we can get all the nutrition from plants. So, what is the reasoning, apart from taste pleasure?
I'd say it's a celebratory thing.
It's like tradition, you just it's normalised, you're used to it.
Not so much that I'm used to it, but that only eating animals very occasionally means that when you eat an animal, it's a very important and communal activity. Especially if it's an animal you've raised on a pastoral land that you own and have looked after, perhaps your kids have fed it and things. It can be a very communal and, it could be a very nice activity to with your family. At least that's my experience with it, growing up on a farm.
Do you think that because something's a cultural act, or it's been done historically, does that necessarily make it moral because it's been done by
I think
in the past?
Culturally, I'd say no. There are cultural acts which have obviously been bad, but religiously, I think morality is very subjective. What I might consider moral because of my religion might be very different from what you consider moral as a secular person. According to my morality, I believe that morality is objective to my personal religion. So I would say yes, it is acceptable. But I think it's a very difficult question to answer, really.
Do you think, are you open to the consideration of that act becoming, or changing your perspective of maybe seeing that as not being moral? Or are you kind of very fixed in it's a cultural norm, so that is completely ethical and fine?
I think it's something I've very heavily considered. Like I've mentioned before, a lot of my parents are vegan. My parents are vegan. But I have personally considered that eating meat is acceptable under very specific circumstances. It's something I've come across myself after a bit of research, and personal feelings. So I would say I would definitely be open to, probably in 10 years I might change my mind, very likely. Especially as vegan alternatives to meat become more and more accessible and nicer.
Oh yeah, to be fair, when I first went vegan when I was 14, 15, it was just tofu and it was so boring. But now there's vegan shrimp, vegan nuggets, everything. Even the Beyond Burger, it literally has blood on it.
Yeah, it's very impressive.
Yeah.
And especially if you're looking at countries, like India, where there's veganism specifically more popular, or significantly more popular. You can see how these dishes are incredibly nice without ever touching meat. It makes me much less likely to eat meat. But I would say throughout my life, I'm more likely, probably on my birthday at least, to always eat meat.
Do you think you could just make those on the celebratory meals? Could you still get the enjoyment with a plant-based alternative, that replicates that taste and everything?
Tofurkey.
Tofurkey, yeah, because there are so many replacements now.
There's so many replacements, and I have done it once or twice, especially meals with my family.
Do you think that would reduce from the joy and the celebration you get? Just reduce it, because you're just reducing animal harm, but it doesn't necessarily reduce the taste pleasure or the kind of feeling of community that you maybe get having that meal.
Yes, I'd say it would, especially religiously. Breaking adherence to religious practices, in some ways, ruins the cultural significance of it. But for things like birthdays and just general promotions and things, I could definitely see that being an acceptable alternative. Yes.
Interesting. There's something I want to learn more about, different religions and
I need
cultures
to
and
do
how
my
they.
research for sure.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about Judaism.
Because
It's
like
not
meat
your
eating
fault.
is
It's
so
only minor religions.
intertwined with like religion and culture, but I don't think that necessarily means that we can't like progress and keep those cultural values, but maybe change the practices slightly.
I think it's much easier with culture than with religion.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I think really, at least in my personal opinion, which definitely differs from your two at least, meat consumption is okay on an incredibly limited and specific scale. You know, I think twice a month for me is an area which I'm quite comfortable in. But I think some people don't want to eat meat at all, and some people I think unfortunately eat meat too much. You know, once a day even, which I consider a bit too much.
Agree. We're all on our personal journeys and we're working it out at our own pace, but agree.
Yeah, I think also, you know, there are medical reasons someone might want to eat meat and things as well, from what I know. So I can understand eating meat regularly, but it's not for me.
Yeah, and like historically, like evolutionary-wise, we haven't eaten meat the amounts we are now, and
No.
we're seeing that effect on like the health of so many
Heart
people.
disease.
Exactly, cancers, like
Yeah.
the rise of so many things which are not only destroying the planet and the animals, but our own health as well.
Yeah, I think especially low quality meat. You know, and the animals you're eating, some of them really shouldn't be eaten in my opinion, specifically pork. You know, I think eating animals which have suffered significantly
I
is
agree.
incredibly bad for your mental health.
Pigs are my favourite. Sorry, I digress.
You said that the cows as well. They're all
Yeah,
your
they're all my
favourites.
favourites. I love them all, but soft spot for pigs.
Yeah.
Oh no, I've never liked pigs. I don't like their hair on them. It freaks me out. We used to have a pig, but I didn't like him. So anyway, that's kind of off topic.
Do you think
Sorry.
you would kill an animal again? Because like you say, like,
Yeah, very likely. I probably will in 2-3 months.
okay,
I do quite often. Go up to Scotland, go hunting with my friends. You know, normally clay pigeons, but occasionally I do shoot animals. Yes, it's not something I'm against.
so for the shooting animals, is that for entertainment and sport? That's not for a religious?
No, it's not for
reason?
religion. I mean, there's vague religious connotations, but not really. It's primarily for sport. It's a social event. And then you get to eat the animal afterwards. I personally think it grows your connection to the food you eat, makes you understand that eating meat, perhaps, you know, the violence that's inherent in eating meat, more for the rest of the year.
Thanks for watching. Please hit the like button, subscribe and ring the bell to get notified when videos go up every Thursday. If you want to watch another conversation, here are a couple of options. And if you want to support my activism, there's a link in my profile to a page where you can buy me a coffee and donate money to an animal sanctuary. Thanks. Amber.